critical focus channel.
Alright, I figured it was time for another one of these, and I'm gonna take a look at a Order warband today. To revisit the premise of this series, go back to the first installment, but pretty much I explore the lore of a warband or a couple of warbands in these episodes, and then I compare the war scroll and the fighter cards to that very same lore to gauge how it all adds up, or if it doesn't. I'm gonna ask you to do the YouTubey things now. Smash all the buttons you can find and leave a comment as well after watching the video to its completion. Thanks a lot. So I'm gonna be a bit kind on myself and not try to cram too much content in one go. Previously I included 2 warbands per episode, but I'm only gonna focus on simply one warband per episode from now on. And this one pertains to my favorite Order warband, the Witch Hunters from Nethermaze, Hexbanes Hunters. And as a dedicated Cities of Sigmar collector, I simply couldn't pass up on this opportunity to take the plunge on this Order warband first. Hexbanes Hunters are an Underworlds warband whose members are part of the Order of Aswell. They are described as mirthless, ruthless and zealous. They use their conviction together with their human ingenuity to fulfill their Order's purpose, rooting out and purging all evil in the mortal realms. Quite the task. They are tenacious foes, ignoring pain that would kill lesser people, although I'm not sure that's reflected in their stat block. Hexbanes Hunters arrived with the Nethermaze season, which is the sequel season to Harrowdeep. Nethermaze basically being an inverted labyrinth to that of Harrowdeep, which ends with a mysterious last chamber that is said to have a sort of mirror thing that transports you out from the hellish labyrinth to some other unknown location. One of my favorite lines from the lore of Nethermaze is where Gwyn Ironsoul finally escapes Nethermaze and finds herself teleported to some other place in the realms. And when she is bathed in the light of Hysh, she looks down on the ground and then notices that she no longer casts any shadow, which had the hairs on my arms standing up when I read it. I think it's a brilliant line. Nethermaze being a creation of ancient mysterious shadow entities, which implies that escaping Nethermaze comes with a heavy toll, a part of you being ripped away in the process. Anyway, back to Hexbanes Hunters. As I mentioned, Hexbanes Hunters are members of the Order of Aswell, Aswell being the realm of heavens, basically Sigmar's realm, that is. For a Warhammer 40k comparison, the Order of Aswell is pretty much the equivalent of Ordo Assassinorum and or the sort of Inquisition. It is comprised of witch hunters, vampire hunters, justicars and investigators, and some other riffraff. It was founded in the wake of the closing of the gates of Aswell, so quite a hot minute ago, to keep the realm of Aswell safe from the more subtle threats and the deprivations of chaos and death. The agents Azerite, as is the proper name of the members of the Order, have 3 purposes, and each unit typically focus on one of these. These include the rooting out of traitors, hunting down of mages and their spellcraft who are a danger to civilization, and lastly the slaying of monsters that disguise themselves as mortals. So, Hexbanes Hunters are of course witch hunters, and thus they operate as investigators and assassins seeking to snuff out the subtler forces of chaos and death attempting to overthrow Sigmar's dominion. The Order of Aswell answers to no one save the authority of the God King himself, and the agents of the Order, especially its witch hunters, are renowned and feared for being ruthless, pragmatic dispensers of Sigmar's justice. Despite this reputation, many within the Order does indeed hold themselves to high moral and ethical standards. So let's talk a bit about the individual fighters. We don't really have a ton of information about the leader, other than that he seems to be a very committed witch hunter. He likes to put witches to the torch, is nifty with a pistol as well as with a fiery brand. Amos is a former woodcutter turned agent, and we have this fantastic line from a card from their first iteration. Splitting logs, splitting limbs, it's all the same. Bridget is not a terribly fleshed out figure, but I'd argue she is very similar to Haskell in her demeanor. We have a great quote by her on the For the Order ploy from 1st edition. Retribution for the wronged, flame for the wicked, and steel for the rest. Pock is an enigmatic figure. He is specifically called Quiet Pock in the 1st edition, and I'm not gonna stop calling him that. Many believe him to be deaf or mute or something along those veins. Him being deaf is certainly possible given his love for explosive stuff. He does shoot grenades with his crossbow after all. But the excellent upgrade Deep Scars from the 1st edition tells us no one is sure if Pock's silence is a result of an injury or a resolution only he can understand. So it's entirely plausible that he has taken some sort of vow of silence in reverence to Sigmar or some such. Very cool nonetheless. Lastly, we have Pock's dogs, Ratspike and Grotbiter, who is fiercely loyal to all of the witch hunters, but of course especially to Pock. We also learn from quite a few cards in the 1st edition that dying for the good cause is a sacrifice gladly taken by all of the witch hunters. Okay, so let's take a look at the fighter cards and the warband War Scroll. Haskell first up is a 3 move, 1 shield, 3 health, 2 bounty fighter with a 1 range, 2 hammers, 1 damage, with crit grievous attack with his firebrand, and 3 range, 3 swords, 1 damage with his pistol. He also has the Azerite Agent's symbol, which all of them except the dogs have. They are instead minions. So 2 bounty for such a killable fighter is quite a lot, honestly, and given that this warband isn't really super strong currently, I sort of wish at least one of the fighters were a little bit sturdier. Not necessarily Haskell though, maybe Amos is a better fit for a 4 health profile given his stature. That being said, if Haskell is going to be 2 bounty, his stats should be a bit better, in some way at least, and I think a boost to either his defense or his lethality could accomplish that. But I think, as I said, 2 bounty is a bit much given his stat line. I think a straight up Grievous uninspired on his melee wouldn't be too much to ask for, especially for a leader of a badass witch hunter warband. Crit Grievous on 2 dice sort of stinks, honestly. He does go to 4 swords, 2 damage inspired, which is fine, especially when you can slap Grievous on top of it. Amos is 3 move, 1 shield, 2 health. For a reliable 2 hammers, 2 damage attack, it goes to 3 hammers inspired. I almost would have preferred 3 damage or Grievous instead, honestly, over accuracy, to sort of reflect the woodcutter strength upgrade from the 1st edition. I think it sort of fits him better to be more sort of deadly than accurate, I guess. He most likely is the least trained of them, at least for combat purposes. He has obviously great proficiency with log cleaving. As I said earlier, I think giving him an extra health to make him worthy of the 2 bounty as 1 shield on 3 health is, in my opinion, 1 bounty territory. Pock next is 3 move, 2 shields, 2 health, 1 glory. Ironically, he's a lot more survivable than both Haskell and Amos as 2 shields. It's just so good in Embergard, with crits simply being regular successes now. On guard, it's very hard to penetrate, so even on 2 health, he's more likely to survive, honestly, even on a health less. His attacks are certainly very bland though. I dearly miss the once per round grenade bolt from season 1, and I think this is a sad profile, honestly. The 2 shields defense is really all that is good with this fighter. He brings decent accuracy but pretty much no output. Bridget is very fragile, at least uninspired on 1 dodge, 2 health, and she dearly needs to stay back initially to hope to make it to round 2 if you don't fancy sacrificing her. But that would sort of be a shame, as she's quite a decent fighter inspired with 3 swords, 2 damage, and we don't have a ton of 2 damage attacks in this warband. So from range she is as bland as Haskell and Pock, or really any ranged fighter in Embergard. Sad. Ratspike and Grotbiter has the exact same profile on 4 move, 1 dodge, 2 health and 0 bounty, but that 0 bounty only applies to the first dog that dies. When the second dog bites it, you will reward your opponent with a glory. As fighters, they are pretty pointless. They're mostly there to provide support via an war scroll ability, and as well there isn't such a thing as beasts anymore, so they are perfect for treasure token grabbing as well. Inspired, they pick up a second dodge, not dog, which isn't too shabby, while getting slightly more accurate as well. So the war scroll then, the Inspire first is, I think, good merch of the slightly more confusing individual inspires they had in first edition. It keeps the spirit of the warband intact without all the bookkeeping. Basically, after an agent, i.e. not a dog, dies, you can inspire another agent. And if Pock is slain, you can inspire each minion. That would be the dogs. I have no issues with this. It's very thematic. Price of victory, lives well spent, and all that jazz. So, next up we have Tools of the Trade. It's a nice transfer from the first edition reaction where you could equip an upgrade for free or remove a charge remove token on an agent after another one died. Here instead we add the total bounty of slain friendly agents to the glory total when we determine how many upgrades we can equip, which is pretty neat. When a hunter falls, knowledge of what felled them is used to better prepare for the next encounter. I like this one. It's easy to think of upgrades as things, stuff, or equipment, but very few upgrades are in fact equipment. Most are rather like traits or sort of perks that you pick up along the road. So I think this tracks in my book. Marked for a vengeance next means that when an agent dies, the enemy fighter who killed them is now marked and vengeance will be exacted on them. This rewards you with a reroll on that enemy fighter, and in addition you'll get to remove a move or charge token from a friendly fighter when you finally bring them down, or if you prefer you can draw a power card. So the last part there with removing a token or drawing a power card is an excellent and versatile translation of the second part of the Price of Victory reaction from the first edition. So good job there. Tight knit pack next is just simply the mechanic that states that the first dog isn't worth any glory, but only by killing both you gain one. Only by killing both of Pock's hounds shall enemies of this warband know peace. So next we have Loyal Hounds. It's a slightly less versatile ability than it used to be, where you can react to an agent moving with moving one of the dogs. So it works on charges as well, so if you charge you can move up the dog to provide support, but you don't necessarily have to move them next. You can just move them anywhere, basically, if you want to grab an objective or, treasure token or something. But you can only use this if that dog doesn't have a move or charge token, so you can't simply spam the support button like you used to do, but I'll take it. It's still a very good ability, which is certainly very in tune with the lore as well. Lastly, we have an old card's namesake here with a ward of Martyr's Blood. The Order of Recieve prepares defenses against everything. So there's a lot of knickknacks and gadgets amongst the ploys and upgrades from first edition, with hexbeak, charms, saloon pistols, tattoos or whatever, and so I think this tracks. The ability is certainly very good, and it's actually an inheritor to one of the best cards in their arsenal from first edition, with by hook or by crook, in that you get to ignore weapon abilities once for an incoming attack. Quite awesome to take away Grievous especially, but possibly anything really that fits the situation. That's it for Hexbanes Hunters. I'm pretty happy overall with how they managed the transition from first to second edition with this warband, and I'm also pretty happy with how the lore sort of transfers to the mechanic. Purely warband strength-wise, they are a little bit weak now, and bumping up a bit of survivability and I think damage output wouldn't hurt. And the thing I do miss the most is for sure Pock's damage spike once per round, which I think could have been fixed with a little square on the war scroll with little to no effort. Too many ranged attacks in this game are bland, and when we have pistol wielding, grenade shooting warriors abound, something should at least be able to pack a bit of punch, right? Well, that's my 2 cents anyway. I love witch hunters to no end, and I still love these guys, weak or not. What do you think of them? How do the lore versus rules track? What do you think of the transition from first edition to second edition? Make your voices heard down below, and do like the video if you haven't already. I am out. Take care. Bye. Lastly, a big shout out to all my members that help support my content and makes it so much easier for me to produce multiple videos on a weekly basis. Members do get access to the member Discord, get to influence the content, get early access to a ton of videos, as well as get featured in the monthly painting showcase if they want. Member or not, I dearly appreciate the like, the comment and the subscription.